You're listening to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on CJAD 800.
That is James MENNIE over at the Montreal Gazette. So, Jim, we spoke to Christian Bourque from Legault a little earlier this afternoon. Of course, the big story, the continued drop, call it what you want to, of the CAC and the gain of the PQ. So, every minister today is going to be asked about this. I wanted you to hear this clip. This is Eric Girard, our finance minister, who was asked about this and reacted this way.
First of all, personally, I'm motivated by these results. I think we're going to need to work harder to gain back the trust of Quebecers, and it's a very difficult period. The economy is slowing down, interest rates are high, inflation is high. So we're working very hard to bring the Quebec economy to another level, and that will help in the long run. And we need to improve services, and we're working on that.
Yeah, they're working. He sounded a lot more excited when he was talking about bringing hockey to Quebec City. But look, it's bad news. We were talking about this yesterday, Jim, waiting for this poll. We now know what's in it. It's interesting in asking Christian Bourque, and I was saying, people have short memories when it comes to politics. We're still 2 years away from a provincial election. And he said something I thought was interesting, saying, it's not so much about the CAC, it's about François Legault.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is. I mean, it is. And what's more is Legault knows this perfectly well. I don't know if you guys listened to the clip you had of Legault reacting to this. And whereas we're talking about a public opinion poll that contains devastating news that essentially confirms a poll conducted a week earlier that found the same thing, that this government that holds 89 of the 125 seats in the National Assembly is trailing 6 points behind a party that holds 4 seats in the National Assembly. It's a condemnation of François Legault's leadership, and his first words are, "What concerns me right now is I want to make sure the children get back to school." So here's the thing. Here's François Legault doing what he's been doing for the past 6 years, desperately trying to change the channel. And the problem is, I think these two polls show that Quebecers are no longer buying into it. I don't know if you guys were able to discuss the breakdown of what is really getting people angry about the CAC government. Number one, 44% said the fact that they have done nothing to improve the health or education networks. But what I found interesting is that whereas number 3, I think at 22%, was spending up to $7 million to bring the LA Kings to play in Quebec City. Number 4, which was at a tie at 22%, was François Legault's going after ethnics with Bill 21, going after Anglos with Bill 96, and going after Anglo institutions like McGill and the universities by increasing tuition fees. They don't like those policies. And it's very interesting to know that when he was listing off, when Legault was talking about this, and he was listing off, there's this and there's that. He didn't mention the whole Anglo angle. Nobody has. And I'm a little worried by that. Does this mean François Legault, who only seems to have a one-note response to anything, is going to escalate his campaign against English Quebec, against English being spoken? It's a bit scary, but on the other hand, this is a reckoning that has been long overdue for this government. I guess we can take some heart from the fact that Quebecers are finally figuring out that they did not vote to break the deadlock, the status quo between the Liberals and the PACs. What they did was get a recycled Péquiste who is dragging every single political cliche from the 1990s, trying to apply them to 21st century Quebec and failing miserably. And I think the real question now is, and I mentioned this earlier this week, is how long will the CAC caucus remain in line, realizing that the guy who got them elected is going to prove to be their single biggest political liability.
I want you to weigh in on when we asked this question off the top of the show. We had a couple of callers, and then I started reading texts from people saying, I agree with that as well. It's kind of out there, Jim, but I want to know what your take on this is. So the caller suggests that this really is the CAC's plan, right? Because they know that there's this disapproval, they're going to basically end up backhandedly supporting the PQ because they're okay with the PQ to win the next election.
Well, here's what's interesting, is that whereas the news is bad for the CAC, it isn't exactly great for the Parti Québécois, because the very same poll that gives them that 6-point lead over the CAC also says that support for sovereignty, the number one item on the CAC's raison d'être, is frozen at 35%.
Yeah.
And more importantly, 44, and this is an astounding number, 44% of respondents said they would like to see Quebec finally sign the Canadian Constitution and become a province, quote, comme les autres, unquote. So this, if I was a sovereigntist, and I had been with René Lévesque since, 76, and I saw this number, my dentures would pop out, because this basically means nearly half of Quebec is ready to put this entire legacy of sovereignty behind them and move on. And frankly, that must be scaring the palates out of Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, consider that, two different ends of the spectrum, right? The party that wants to pull out of the province has the biggest support, but people really don't want that anymore, and they could never win a referendum if they had one.
I mentioned this after the Jean Talon by-election. Please, please, please don't mistake support for the Parti Québécois as being, real, okay? This is basically telling the CAC to take a walk. And if it's the Parti Québécois that's getting that support, it's because the Liberals, God help them, the increasingly hapless, irrelevant, pointless Liberal Party of Quebec is stuck at 14%, 4% support among Francophones, and they're doing absolutely nothing to change that situation. So quite frankly, I'm not surprised to see the support going to the PQ, if only because A, they're behaving like a proper opposition, and B, they at least stand for something. So they can turn around and say, you know what, you're doing a good job in government. No, we're not going to support sovereignty. We're not going to take Quebec out of Canada. But in the meantime, compared to anybody else, compared to the Liberals, compared to the Solidaires, compared to the Conservatives, you're doing a better job. We support you. I think that's all there is to this. And the Liberals, like I say, good luck to them. They have 2 years to turn it around, but quite frankly, I think it's too late.
I want to ask you the same question that we asked Christian Berker earlier today from Legault, which is that, say Legault, he's panicking. There's no question. He's seeing these polls. We know how much he loves polls, and he's having a heart attack. So say this motivates the government to actually get a deal done for the public sector strikers right now. Does that change things in any kind of dramatic fashion? Does this save his supper?
Well, listen, I followed some contract negotiations in my time, indeed those at the Gazette as well. And quite frankly, this poll is good news for the unions because they can sit back and say, no, take that offer back, bring us something better.
Good point.
Because right now, the poll suggests the public can't stand you, and every poll that's being done about us says we have the full support of the public. And as I mentioned earlier this week, this might wind up being a higher in the way of taxes for Quebecers if the CAC decides to get out of this by giving the unions the store. But, there's even as we speak, there is an offer about to be made to the Common Front. We'll see where that goes. But right now, the unions are in the driver's seat. And frankly, any settlement will not be perceived as good work by the CAC, but as a victory by the unions over an increasingly inefficient, incompetent, and quite frankly, lost government. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how things go. Usually we say, okay, wait till everything's going to dissipate over Christmas. I don't think so. I think this stuff is really going to gestate over the Christmas holidays. Come New Year's, I think the news is going to be even worse for Monsieur Legault and company.
Jim, 30 seconds. An F-bomb dropped today in the National Assembly. We were just so excited to hear someone go F you to Simon Jolin Barrette. What'd you think?
Well, it's happened before in various legislatures. I just like the fact that I couldn't tell if Simon Jolin Barrette was more angry over being insulted with an F-bomb or basically being insulted in English. So
it's just better in English, I think. I'm not sure how it would have worked in French. I just
we've
think it's pretty clear.
We've had this conversation before.
Yeah.
The F-bomb in Quebec French does not have the blast radius that it has in English.
That's what I'm saying. It's way better in English. James MENNIE at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Demain.